Hello, and welcome to the first guided mindfulness meditation from Practically Mindful. This series I'm calling Becoming Your Senses, as that is what I think is the most apt description of what we're trying to accomplish in this form of mindfulness meditation practice. So I appreciate everyone who has requested an actual guided mindfulness meditation and all your patience in this process. It's been many months since I've been able to post. So I look forward to your feedback in the comments. What has gone well in this? What could be improved? And I look forward to releasing additional videos if we find this of value. So we'll start with a quick overview of the theory so that you understand in what ways you're looking to alter your perception of reality. And then we'll dig straight into the practice itself. We'll have a brief guided meditation hereafter. So if you'd like to jump to that, or if you're familiar with the ways that this theory is different, by all means, please skip ahead. But let's get started. So again, first, a brief overview. Everything we're talking about in mindfulness meditation is all about what it is like to be you, what it's like to be you, and what it's like to be you in the world. Right. And so, in terms of our intuitive understanding or perception of that, we would call that the subject object perspective, right? It is to say that in a very real sense, you are this body, these hands and fingers and eyes and the rest. And that is what we would call the subject. And anything that's not directly attached to your body would be considered an object, something other than yourself out in the world. It could be the grass, the clouds, the air, the sky, anything else is an object. And this is truly sort of what it intrinsically feels like to be any creature with consciousness, right? There is something that it feels like to be you and to be any other creature that is aware of its surroundings. And we're not going to assert that this does not exist. This is a true reality, right? So we will not be making a claim that the subject object perspective is false in any way. It is simply one way of perceiving the world. And in terms, though, of where you truly experience reality, right, where this is actually happening, what it feels like right now to be you, it's actually all happening exclusively in the brain. In that sense, the perception that you are a body with arms and fingers and eyes is really more of a mental trick that the mind plays on itself to function fluently in the world, right? Imagine if you didn't perceive yourself as a body with arms and legs, but you perceived yourself as a floating brain in a walking suit, right? That would be a layer of separation between you and the outside world that would likely slow your response to it, which is very detrimental out in the natural world, of course. So it's important that the brain plays this trick on itself to believe that it is this body. But in reality, again, it's all happening. The point of contact with nature, with the outside world, and even with yourself is all happening inside of the head. You don't actually touch the grass. When you feel you're touching the grass, it isn't you doing it. It's the nerves in your feet sending a signal up to the brain, and your brain perceives what that grass felt like. Same with looking out at the world. You're not seeing the world directly from your eyes. You're receiving the information into your brain of what your eyes received as lenses looking out in the world. And this is a way of describing the non-dual perspective. I'm sure there are some who would say that's not exactly the right definition of non-dual perspective. Totally understood. But in terms of a very simplistic understanding of what the non-dual perspective means, it's simply stating that all of reality is happening in here, and it while it feels like it's all happening as a you as a body out in the world, that's just a mirage that the brain is creating for you. And when we become aware of consciousness in this way, the perception that you are your body in the world sort of starts to break down under that scrutiny. Yes, you're using your sense organs of the body from reality one, from the subject object perspective. You're using your eyes, your ears, and your nerves to understand the world, but the sense information isn't processed and analyzed until it gets to the brain. And so, in that sense, it's sort of like if you were to see an image captured by the Hubble telescope and then believe suddenly that you are the Hubble telescope. That is a lens out in space that is receiving that information, being transmitted down to Earth, and then you are viewing it, right? Nobody thinks that they are the Hubble telescope because they see what that lens sees. And in the same way, You are not your eyes just because you are consistently, continuously receiving the information that your eyes receive. They're two separate experiences, two separate things. But ultimately, though, both ways of understanding reality are true. You are this body in the world, and you are also the space in your head where all senses meet. Right? Both of these ways of seeing reality are valid. But you only ever see or perceive yourself as the body in the world. Why is that? Well, this practice is designed to actually unlock that second way of viewing the world, to be from a first-hand, right now perspective, perceive that you are not actually that body in the world, to perceive that everything actually is happening in the mind. When you do this, when we move towards this way, consciousness begins to simply rest in the space where senses converge. Internal analysis, the subject object projections, they all cease, and you rest as your raw sensory experience or something very close to it. To achieve this, we will use several specific techniques to draw awareness away from the subject object and guide it towards this non-dual perspective. And everything will be done via our senses because everything that you perceive in the world is perceived in one way or another through your senses. Okay, so very quick before we get started, this is a new type of mindfulness. And it's different in a few specific ways. First off, it's very active and not passive. What I mean by that is if you've ever done mindfulness practice before, you're probably familiar with the idea of simply resting in silence and either emptying the mind of its contents or passively accepting any appearance that occurs within consciousness, good or bad. There is no definition like that. It's simply appearances arise and appearances leave, and there is no judgment to be made. And that's fine. That is one way of engaging in mindfulness practice. We, however, are going to use a different approach that states the mind is going to fill itself with contents. If you do not give the mind something to observe or attend to, it will create its own things. So rather than simply allowing the mind to create whatever it wants, we are going to utilize some techniques, some props, headphones, other things to feed it content that is less disruptive and more valuable towards the end of mindfulness meditation. We're going to be very focused on the senses. Everything that we talk about will be oriented through at least one, if not more, of the senses. Nothing will be spoken about in metaphor, right? It's all very literal. And it's also going to be eyes open. You can do this eyes closed, but again, going back to point number one, this is intended to be active and not passive meditation. And utilizing your visual field and applying colorful objects and lights and darks, like you can see in the background where I meditate here, is valuable in preventing the mind from generating its own new ideas and thoughts. And the goal is to simply rest as your raw senses. In preparation, again, it's all meant literally. If you hear something and you believe it's metaphorical or you're not sure how I mean it, please, by all means, pose the question in the comments so I can understand where I need to better clarify. But as literally as you can take anything, that's how you should take it. I would recommend good headphones for this, especially as you go to practice on your own in the future. I use loud music when I meditate in headphones, fairly loud because it is a form of distraction or a form of sensory input that is valuable in terms of this practice. Um, and without that type of rhythmic noise and something to quote unquote distract me, the internal monologue kicks into play and pulls me away from meditation. Last, stage your space for distraction-free eyes open meditation. So again, you don't want anything in your space like you can see in the background here. You don't want anything that's going to be an object readily identifiable that is going to pull your attention towards it, even unconsciously. For example, I wouldn't have, say, a tennis shoe laying there. My mind would be constantly aware that's a tennis shoe, even if I'm not actively saying it. So anything like that you want to hide behind a pillow, move out of your immediate visual field, or others. So you can see I use lots of blankets, dark space with warm lighting, right? It really just creates a visually attractive field without being distracting. Okay, so with that, we'll begin. We're in a great place because it's raining outside, so it should sound nice. So first, let's take 5 long breaths, and I want you to relax your gaze. Breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your nose. Breathe in, breathe out. Continue breathing and relaxing your gaze. Your eyelids can be half open, barely open, but just let your eyes droop. Elongate the breath and elongate the pause after exhale. Now continue breathing as you are, and as you relax your vision and your eyes, hold your gaze on your lower eyelids. Genuinely focus your eyes on your lower eyelid. It should be like a dark semicircle at the bottom of your visual field. Continue breathing and keep focusing on your lower eyelids. Your eyes will want to readjust and look outward. Gently continue pointing your attention towards your lower eyelids. Next, inhale while continuing to look at your lower eyelids. See if you can simply notice the outer limits of your visual field. Don't change your focal distance. Simply observe your eyelids while trying to use your peripheral vision to observe the very edge of your visual field. On the inhale, notice the edge of your visual field. And on the exhale, look at your eyelids. Again, notice the edges of your visual field. Exhale and notice your eyelid. Back and forth. where actually are the limits of your peripheral vision? Continue breathing, continue the exercise, and dogmatically attend to your eyelids. Do not let your eyes refocus out into the room. If all of this is happening inside of your brain, what is beyond the edge of your peripheral view? Can you perceive past it? Can you look at your eyelid and see just a little further beyond the edge of your periphery than you're seeing right now? Continue to relax your gaze. Continue to observe your lower eyelid. And wherever your eyes are gently focused, whatever plane of distance away from you they're observing, simply observe before that. Observe where your eyelids are and look before that. As you breathe in, observe your periphery and look before that. Continue to back your perception away. Continue to pull back. Breathe. Observe the periphery on inhale. Observe the eyelids on the exhale. And if you can, pause after you exhale before you inhale again. Simply rest as long as it's comfortable to in that moment. Look sooner. You may begin to notice a visual shimmer or static in front of you. Avoid the urge to look at it or look at anything. Wherever you're looking, keep pushing awareness backward, inward. If you're not seeing things at your eyes, then your eyes aren't a limit anymore. You can see before them. Continue going, continue observing and breathing slowly and slower still. And if you've mastered that, and if you feel confident in that flow, I want you to start to observe, physically observe the sound of my voice like drops on your visual field. This should work especially if you're wearing headphones. So if my voice was a drop of water and your visual field was a pond, where would my voice land? Does it change location? Again, continue to hold the perspective or the visual depth right at your eyelids or before. My voice should almost be between your ears, so keep pushing your awareness backward until you can until it feels like you can see it, until you can see where my voice would land on your visual field. Where are the raindrops hitting on your visual field? Observe your eyelid. Observe the periphery. Then observe the sound. Continue rotating between these and pushing awareness backwards. On these last few breaths, as you inhale, genuinely try to inhale your periphery. Breathe it into yourself. And on the exhale, rest, observing your eyelids. Breathe your periphery into you. Rest awareness on your eyelids. Breathe in your periphery. Rest on your eyelids. And there we have it. I truly hope you found that to be useful, that the practice was accessible, and hopefully you noticed something a little different than you've noticed before during meditation. If you didn't, that's okay. It took me a long time to get there. But the hope is that you're able to find an expedited path. Uh, so, ways to improve this practice first is feedback. If you can provide any feedback, that would be extremely valuable. Obviously, subscribe and share so that I understand that this is something that's worth pursuing. If you're frustrated by it for some reason, again, let me know. But try with headphones. Try this looking not at your screen, certainly, but looking at a wall while my voice is playing. Uh, Practice the meditation here, guided a couple times, and then go practice it on your own, listening to music that you find calming and is ideally played in headphones and is very spatial. right? Anytime that you can find a song or music that is going to play in your headphones and make notes and at the front of your headphones and the back of your headphones and the left and the right, that's going to help draw your awareness inward in the way that we're trying to do here. Okay. And again, this is something that I have learned as I've gone as well. So I'd love to hear your feedback. What's worked well for you? What hasn't? Thank you so much. And look forward to hearing from you.